Let's discuss what we get in each kit. Okay, we'll start off with our standard quick stage Turbo 400 kit. So here you're going to get your solenoid. Okay, your solenoid with your manifold. You're going to get a gasket. You're going to get a hardware kit. You're going to get two orifices, or one set screw and one orifice. You're going to get a 7-gauge drill bit. You're going to get a collet. You're going to get a shaft collar for the end mill. You're going to get an end mill. And then you're also going to get this plate right here. This is your universal fixture plate for this kit. Now, this is designed for both kits, okay, for the Pro and for the Standard. You see here, it's a little dirty, but it's our shop one. To go through it here, we have several holes here that we drill, and these are all on this side here is for our standard kit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that is for our standard kit for our valve body that looks like this. Now all these standard valve body kits will have listed on the website what valve bodies that this standard kit fits. This is a very common valve body. This is an internal trans brake manual valve body. External ones that look just like this, external trans brake ones work the same. Okay, so you have that. And as well as each kit is going to have the number 6 hole, which is on this side here. Okay, if you can see that. There's a number 6 hole here, and I'll get way more in depth as we go through each process. So I just want to explain this. On this side here, okay, on side 2, you're going to have a line there, okay? That line right here is where the valve body bolts up. Now I have 2 threaded holes into this fixture plate here, and allows you to use 5/16 18 bolts, pretty much the same bolts that hold the valve body down to the case. You line it up to that line, and then you can start actually drilling the holes you need to in your valve body. Let's get into actually looking at a transmission that we have here, and we'll start the process of actually utilizing the basic function of this kit that every transmission has to get. And that starts off with this plate here. The first step for installing your Turbo 400 Quick Stage Spool Assist solenoid is going to be modifying your case and your stator. For this step, we're going to be utilizing our fixture plate here, and we're going to be focusing on the number 6 hole that's marked in the bottom of side 2, the bottom left-hand corner here. What we're doing is we're drilling with a 201 hole, chasing this hole here. Now this acts as a drill guide for making the modifications to install this kit. So case and stator, drill point 201 drill this side up. Very self-explanatory. It's engraved into this, so it won't rub off or anything like that. Okay, we'll put that aside there. In the kit, you're going to get a 201 drill bit, like stated on the fixture plate here. Also, you're going to need to supply your own 1/4-inch drill bit. We're going to be chasing these holes through the case and through the stator to up the size. The reason why we're starting out small, the primary reason why we're starting out with a smaller drill bit hole, is because in the kit that's supplied, there are other holes here that require that drill size. Your kit may not require that, but this is a universal fixture plate, so keep that in mind. So we'll put that aside. You're going to need a drill, cordless drill, whatever you have, a drill obviously. I recommend a roll of tape. Okay, so we're going to be covering up parts of the transmission to make this a whole lot easier and cleaner. We've got our drill bits, some hardware. I have some 5/16 hardware to actually hold down this fixture plate here. We're going to be sandwiching it with the stator, and we're going to drill the stator in the case at the same time, which I'll show you. Here we have our Turbo 400, and we have it disassembled. Now again, I recommend having a transmission specialist or someone who is well knowledgeable in the disassembly of your transmission, specifically the Turbo 400, to make these modifications. Okay, we have our pump removed, and we have our valve body off. Okay, those are the 2 critical areas. Obviously, I'm showing you this without a transmission that was just full of transmission fluid and is, an oily mess. It can be done. And I'm trying to show that we can do this without taking the entire guts of the transmission out, okay? So here we have our input shaft. We have the entire assembly, drums and gear train in our Turbo 400, okay? First step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our rear half of our pump. I definitely recommend, I remove the seals on this when I install these kits, even though if it's a good pump or not, because I'm gonna be cleaning it anyway. And I also remove the pressure regulator and boost valve spring assembly here. We're going to be cleaning it, and we don't want to have any chips sitting in there, okay? We're also going to be doing plugging some holes here on the original converter feed. So again, it helps having this disassembled. So we're going to take our rear pump half, and we're going to set it inside the transmission here. We're going to line it up. Get it lined up where it needs to be. You can see that the holes only line up one way. Okay, we have that in there. We're going to take our fixture plate, side 2 up, okay? And the side 2 usually is at the top of the transmission. The holes are the same to line up. Okay, we're going to line these holes up. We're going to make sure that all the holes line up with the actual case and the stator half holes. Some people you can use. Sometimes I'll use these little alignment, long 5/16 shouldered bolts that I cut the heads off of. There is no gasket. The gasket is on the front pump half, the O-ring seal for the pump, so this makes it a whole lot easier, so I don't think it's that necessary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of these bolts in the pump here. You don't have to have all the bolts in. I like to have at least 3 to be able to make sure it doesn't move. So we'll get these snugged down. It doesn't have to be that crazy. All right, so we have that down. Doesn't have to be torqued or anything. Again, we're just drilling through the stator and through the case, okay? We have to put a hole in the stator to help or to allow fluid to flow through the case back into the pump. All right, so we have our tape here. And we're gonna be taping up the holes that we're not utilizing to prevent chips from going into the transmission. We'll tape around our converter groove in our fixture plate. We'll tape around the holes that we're not utilizing currently for the valve body. You can put a bolt, one of the case bolts right through where the hole we're going to drill. Doesn't really matter. I'm not doing it, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. We're going to put some tape around our stator tube, stator support tube, to prevent any chips from going in through the center there. Next, we're going to have the front of the transmission here. We're going to put some tape up here. Okay, the first top channel that is in this case, okay, that is this channel right here. Okay, that's where we're going to be drilling into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape below it first. And if you have a piece of cardboard or a piece of paper to make it easier, you could do that as well. I'm going to do that. Okay, and lastly, we're going to cover up the majority of that area. We want to be able to see inside of this hole. We're going to be drilling down. This is the technical part where we have to be careful. We're going to be drilling down through the case, through the stator half, through the pump half, and into this cavity right here. We don't want to go too far, okay? Where we're drilling this hole is also going to be right at the bottom of this cavity. Okay, just so happens to be where it falls in line with the bolt pattern or the ring pattern of the pump gasket and the whole assembly here. We'll take our drill bit. We'll start. Now we're going to be drilling through cast iron first, then we're going to be drilling through aluminum. So you'll see cast iron come up through the hole here, around the drill bit. Once you start seeing aluminum, you're going to want to check and start keeping an eye on how you're drilling into this cavity. Okay, once that's done, we're going to reinstall this here. We're just going to get a couple bolts inside of it here so it doesn't move, so we can accurately locate our pump half to the case. We don't have to make them too tight. Again, we're just going to be chasing that hole. Again, take some tape, cover up the areas that we don't want to get metal chips into. And now we're going to chase the case here with the 1/4 inch drill bit. Now remember, we've got to be careful we don't go all the way through that number 5 passage, or that first passage that we have here. Okay, take a look down, everything looks pretty good. So now we'll take our stator back off. And the modifications to our stator and to our case are one step closer to getting this kit installed. The last thing we need to do for the rear pump half is to block off the converter feed, the OEM converter feed to the converter, okay? We're modifying that circuit. We're bringing converter fluid from a different area of the transmission. You'll see and you'll notice that there are 2 ports here on your converter feed, okay? If we can see there, those are your 2 ports for your converter feed. This is the OEM one coming from the pump, and this OEM one here is actually going through the pump housing and going up to the converter. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be blocking off the OEM converter feed. We're now taking converter fluid from a different area, obviously through our quick stage solenoid. So we no longer want to have fluid coming directly from the pump to the converter. If you're familiar with installing a trans brake or hear the term of ballooning your converter, okay, people will restrict the primary hole feeding the converter right here with an orifice, with a 120 thou, 110 thou orifice, okay? We're not going to be doing that on this section of the pump half. We're going to be blocking off the OEM converter feed. On your 896 rear half here, okay, typically the hole there is 1/4 inch already, or pretty close. You can go ahead and take a 5/16 tap, and you can tap that hole like I've already done here, okay? So that hole right there is tapped. Again, typically you would see the hole that's closer to the stator support tube to be threaded to put an orifice in, okay? Again, we're not doing that. We need to block off our original converter feed. In your kit is going to be a 5/16 set screw that's completely blocked off. You're going to take that, you're going to tap here with a 5/16 tap, not supplied in the kit, and you're going to plug that off. I recommend not going too deep when it comes to that. You do not want to hit that pressure regulator valve. So you only need to go so far down to make sure that the plug does not protrude past the surface of this pump half. All right, so now we have our 2 pump assembly halves sitting right here. We went ahead and we drilled this hole that you see here now. You could chamfer that a little bit. You could take a little knife or razor blade or countersink, and you can chamfer that as that meets up to the actual, this side of the pump. Now, this being an already, well, it was already a race transmission ready to go. It was making races, making passes. What you'll commonly see in a trans brake is we have an orifice in here. This is a converter feed, so it comes from your pump pressure. Okay, normally it goes through and feeds the circuit inside the pump here. Okay, feeds all your fluid to your case. Okay, but there's a hole right here. Okay, that fluid comes from to fill your converter. What we're going to do is a couple things in the stator. We're going to actually, if this is already in here, you're going to remove that orifice. Okay, we've already in our kit have one way downstream on our solenoid manifold. This makes it a lot easier if you want to modify the orifice. So it does the same thing, it's just farther downstream. That hole there, we're actually going to drill and tap that. Okay, and that's what you get with your kit when you get a supplied orifice. The one with the white marking on it, any kind of color marking on there, is going to be for the actual manifold, okay, our manifold, and the one is a standard plug that is 5/16. Okay, you're going to tap that for 5/16, and you're going to block this off completely. That's a little tedious. You do not drill all the way down. Okay, it's actually almost ready to go for a 5/16 tap. Let me grab one, and hopefully we can do it the correct way. Okay, so the pressure regulator, boost valve, all that stuff is closed off. We have our 5/16 tap. Okay, it's at a slight angle, as you can see. The hole is so close, and it's cast iron, it kind of makes it easier. You could put a little grease on this to kind of maybe hold the chips in, but we don't want to go all the way. We don't want to, definitely don't want to strike our PR, our regulator valve, okay? We don't have to go down that far. Now, obviously, I would highly recommend cleaning this out, the pressure regulator valve out, but blow it off a little air, just double check it so we can start doing this fitment. But definitely a little bit of brake clean and clean everything out. Is highly recommended. You could put some thread sealant, some Loctite on this. That's fine. Okay, we're going to dry this in pretty snug. As long as it's below that surface, which it is, you're fine. And again, you don't want to go all the way down. I would definitely recommend probably Loctiting it in, which I'll do after I clean this. But I'm not going to be doing that for this instructional video. And again, if that is in there, you remove that. Okay, and you're going to want to clean all that stuff out as well. What's going to require for this is it's going to require this wear plate, and we actually call it a reprogramming plate. Okay, now this gets sandwiched in between the pump stator, pump housing assemblies. Okay, so make it an assembly, and the reason we have to do this is that we're using an kind of an older style. I don't want to get too much into it. I'll bring one over here to help explain, make it easier. Let me just help explain this. This is the 896 stator housing. This is actually an 068 stator housing. Okay, so the last three digits. Some of the differences, okay? The major difference is on this one is that there is no cast iron. Keep my fat finger out of there. There is cast iron here, okay, that along this area right here, but there's not here. Okay, we need material to be here. Okay, and I'll explain why. So those are the two major differences with these two. Okay, move those out of the way. Let's bring in the pumps. So here is the 895. And here is, excuse me, 068. That's an 073 stator. My apologies. That's why you got to double check the website. All the information is correct there. Okay. So what we're going to do, and if you can't see the obvious difference, on the 895, there's a big cavity here, and we have this channel here. Okay. Well, here we have no big cavity, but we have the channel that starts all the way down here. Now, if you recall that hole that we drilled into the stator housing, right here highlighted in blue, okay, that hole comes from the case, comes from the valve body. When it comes through the stator housing, it goes right into the forward pump housing right here. And it does it right here too. On this pump, it's going to fill this entire void. We don't care if it fills the entire void. It's still going to bring fluid over here, and I'll explain that we actually do have to modify a little bit on this pump, and I'll explain that to you in a second. Here, it's already bringing all that fluid up to this point. Okay, this point right here is actually right above the converter fill hole right here that fills a converter. Okay, and that's the reason we have to block that off, because if we don't put that plate on there, the fluid will not be able to bring itself around here, come up and start to walk its way around. It'll just get back feed pressure, everything else. We don't want to do that. That's why we need the reprogramming plate. Okay, so once that's done, now what we could see here is that port, okay, is now running right into this area, which is now going to feed your torque converter. Okay, that's where we're getting our fluid from, right there. The next step for installing our quick stage kit is going to be modifying the front half of the pump. We're going to go back to our kit, to our fixture plate here. Okay, and we're going to be utilizing side 1. You're going to take this fixture plate, preferably with your pump already obviously disassembled. You don't have to take the front seal off, but I definitely recommend doing that so you can get a pretty good clean on this front pump half. We're going to align the bolts, and we're going to bolt this down, nut and bolt to it. The next step for installing this kit is to be adding or modifying the internal converter feed groove in your front pump half. Here I've gone ahead and installed our fixture plate, side 1 up, and aligned the holes where they need to be and bolted them down using 5/16 hardware and some nuts. With the kit, you're going to get a collet body, you're going to get a shaft collar, and you're going to get a 6mm 4-flute high-speed steel end mill. Here I have the one we use in the shop, okay, and it assembles just like this. This stuff is going to be pre-assembled when you purchase the kit, so you won't have to worry about measuring the offset or distance for this shaft collar on the end mill. What I typically like to do is, this is already preset to the height. You can do this in steps. It is not needed. But essentially what we're doing here is we're utilizing this collet body to allow to glide or guide the collet body and the end mill along the path we need to open up for this converter feed groove. It's a very simple process. You can actually do this with one hand on the pump body and one hand on your drill. So we'll go ahead first. We will get our drill set up here. What I try to do here is just, you don't need that much because it is cast iron, but we can put a little bit of tapping oil, cutting fluid, anything you need inside this groove to make it a little bit easier. This is a little bit messy to do. It is necessary to do this. Okay, we have our end mill in our drill here. Okay, we have it chucked down pretty good. We're going to slide our collet body over. You could do it either or. But we'll get this going, and I typically take my thumb and I'll apply pressure forward as the drill is spinning and cutting the groove into it. A little tip too, as you're going through, periodically come back and blow the chips out so they're not building up and causing you not to be able to make any progress with the end mill. As you can see, we finished up the converter feed groove as we milled it along here, and that's plenty deep enough, plenty wide enough to be able to get fluid to your converter. Okay, let's start off with this valve body here, and again, denalracing.com. Through the technical page, you'll be able to see what part numbers are available, whether it's Summit, ATI, TSI, JAGS, and a couple other companies, okay? So we're back with our fixture plate here, and like I discussed before, we have these marks here, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take the valve body and we're going to line it up with those marks. And you can utilize any hardware you have that's 5/16, long or short, doesn't matter. I'm just going to grab what I have next to me. Okay, and you want to carefully line it up. The marks are pretty visible because what this does is allows you to accurately drill the holes into this valve body without screwing it up, because it's pretty critical when it comes to our standard kit for this, for them to be in the correct spot. Okay, so now we're going to follow the instructions here. Now this valve body here, which I have, went through a couple stages, so we did omit one hole here, so but don't worry about that. This kit here is going to tell you everything you need to do. So what we're going to do is you're going to drill these 5 holes with the supplied 7-gauge drill bit. Okay, you're going to drill these 5 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, all with this supplied drill bit. All right, you're going to drill them all the way through. Okay, so it's going to tell you to tap 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so you're going to be drilling all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to be tapping with a 1/4 tap that's supplied by you. 1, 2, and 5. 3 and 4 are the oil ports for the standard kit for this particular valve body. Okay, so since they're already done on this one, you'll see here. So we're drilling all these here. Okay, and we're tapping 1, 2, and 5. Okay, very, very simple. Now, the next step for this is you're going to take it back off. And again, it's already listed on there. Okay, you're going to need a separator plate. Okay, you're now going to take the separator plate. You're going to do the same thing again. And the reason is we don't want to drill and tap or drill the separator plate for only just these 2 holes. We don't want any additional holes in the separator plate as they cross over other channels. Okay, after we lined everything up, all right, now we're going to come in and we're going to drill holes 3 and 4 again through the separator plate. Okay, that's it. Okay, and again, on the new plates, they're instructional. This is the shop one. I already know what to do when it comes to this one, the R&D one. Okay, So again, you're going to drill all the holes first with just the valve body bolted down and lined up. Okay, you're going to drill 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, you're going to tap 1, 2, and 5. And then you're going to reinstall everything with the separator plate, and you're going to drill through holes 3 and 4 through the separator plate. And they're all going to be in your valve body there. Okay. The last step in completing the install of your Quick Stage Turbo 400 Spool Assist Kit is going to be cleaning all the components that you have and starting to reassemble your transmission. You start off with the pump, or if you've had to take the whole thing apart, obviously you'll have to follow those steps as well. You can start off with your pump as well as your valve body. With your valve body, you're going to install all the bolts except the top 2 up here. The closest one to the rooster plate is going to be a bolt that we supply in a kit, which is a 5/16 button head, and that's an Allen socket bolt. You're going to install that and torque that down. The reason we have you install that is because the button head has the clearance for the coil. If you have an ATI valve body, typically they are at 12 point, and that head is going to hit the coil. With this other bolt here, the design of our manifold allows you to utilize the factory bolt through the case. So you're going to install that first. You're going to get it about hand tight, and you're going to go ahead and install the remaining bolts. You get an 1 3/4 long, 1/4 bolt that goes through the taller portion there, and the remaining 2 bolts are a 1/4 button head that go diagonally from each other. With the 5/16 bolt, you're going to torque it down to about 12 foot-pounds. With the remaining 1/4 bolts, you're going to do about 8 foot-pounds. One of your last steps, obviously, is wiring. Tuning-wise, I don't give any advice for tuning. That's on you to figure out. Again, this is a spool assist valve, so most of the aftermarket ECUs should have that option on there. Definitely consult your tuner, or if you do it yourself, good on you, but definitely consult your tuner when setting that up. But it's a very simple, normally open valve, so if there is an issue with electrical wiring, if you're not utilizing it, it's still always flowing your ATF to your converter, so there's no issue with burning your converter out, unless this gets clogged. But definitely, obviously, when you're kind of overhauling your transmission for the season, it's something definitely to take apart and make sure you clean it. It's a very simple assembly, very simple valve. It is a Hydroforce -10 valve, so a really nice component. Again, with installing this, make sure the surfaces are clean. Okay, our manifolds are precision machines, so the surfaces are extremely flat. If your valve body is used, maybe a little bit beat up, especially around where the bolt hole is, you can either take a countersink or some sandpaper or some Scotch-Brite and make sure that surface is really flat and clean. The key here is flat. Because they're precisely machined surfaces, we don't need any gaskets or O-rings. If you do have a concern there, obviously you can email us. We might be able to help you out with that on remedies to clean up the surface, but typically it's just around the bolt hole, which you can kind of take possibly a file or some sandpaper, again, or a countersink. It's going to knock that burr down that bolt had created originally. Obviously, if it's a brand new one that's never been installed, you're probably not going to have that issue. Again, the key thing here is cleanliness. Make sure there's no debris or dirt as you're reinstalling it. Follow the instructions. Hopefully the video was helpful. If you do have any questions, you can email me at sales@denialracing.com. I'm more than happy to kind of give you some tips. Or if you see something and you have a question about it, again, I'm more than happy to answer that email. And again, if you have to do a phone call, just try to schedule it through an email first. Wiring it, we're trying to come out with some different things for the wiring, for the plug, for a Deutsch connector, but that's kind of a little later on. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful. My name is Patrick with Denial Racing and Performance. Thanks.